Brian Milton, the first person to circumnavigate the globe in a Microlight aircraft, is now flying up America's eastern seaboard en route for Newfoundland. From there, he plans to become the first to microlight across the Atlantic Ocean non-stop. He's just passed New York City and is worried about his fuel reserves.
And the present way I'm eating fuel, I'm not going to get to Halifax. I'm going to fall short. The thing is, should I go and stop at an airfield and just get some fuel? And the answer is yes, I should. Then it's a question of what, but I don't have to make that decision quite yet, so I'll wait.
Brian puts off the decision until later, hoping the fuel problem will just resolve itself. But one decision that can't wait is breakfast. It's not exactly the height of nouvelle cuisine up here. The menu is distinctly minimalist. Just one fruit bar for the whole journey.
That's the only food I brought with me. I expect in 10 minutes' time I shall get a sugar rush.
As he speeds over land and water, Brian tries to keep his mind busy all the time. If he doesn't, he'll start thinking about how high and vulnerable he is in his little microlight. And with his fear of heights, that isn't a good idea. Luckily, he has gadgets galore on his little craft, all of which need monitoring or tweaking from time to time. As well as GPS, with its satellite pinpointing of his position, there's a bank of flight data equipment. Brian decides he'll get away without refueling, so he tries to relax as he approaches Halifax, Nova Scotia, taking time to weigh up how the Microlight has been performing so far.
She handles very well, she just doesn't fly in a straight line forever. And I just have to be careful about that. See, I'm just in talking to you, I've gone off course about 30 degrees. Come on, you get back in now. So, Nova Scotia's over there somewhere.
But an hour later, he's less confident. The weather is changing quickly, and he's not at all sure he'll have enough fuel to get him to Nova Scotia after all.
It doesn't look very nice at all, actually. It looks dreadful. But I presume if it's just rain, I don't care. But if it's mist and I can't see where I'm going, that's a much different thing.
Well, let's definitely land there. It's Nova Scotia. Welcome to New Scotland. It's just a bit like old Scotland. This is now definitely the longest flight I have ever made. Before today, the longest time I'd spent in the air was 8¼ hours when I flew from Kulisuk to Reykjavik in crossing the Atlantic. And I had a terrible time, much worse time than I'm having today. I'm not having a bad time at all today. And the distance flown was 450 miles. I've now flown 460 miles and I've got about another 154 to fly.
At last he reaches the Nova Scotia coastline.
So I've arrived at Nova Scotia, and so long as there's any roads nearby, I should be okay, because I can always land on one if there's anything that goes wrong. But I wouldn't like to spend a night out here without any resources, and I don't have any resources really. Just turning at the moment to pick up my course. And I'm back on course. Finley, which is an airfield, should be coming up very soon on my right. That looks like an airfield there, but I can't be sure. I'm out into wild country here.
Brian's only a few miles away from Halifax when he receives a message to say the cloud there is too thick for him to land. He forgets all about his camcorders. This is a serious situation. His only practical way out is to turn around and head back towards Yarmouth. It'll be a race against time, as light is fading fast and he's almost out of fuel. But an hour later, with his Microlight engine practically breathing in just the fumes from his big tank, he drops into Yarmouth. The end of day one, and he still has the Atlantic crossing ahead of him.
It's Friday, June the 1st. I'm at a place called Yarmouth, and I came in here after 10 hours flying yesterday in really rotten conditions. Low cloud, lashing rain, and a fairly strong wind. The wind remains, and it's still a west-northwesterly, which is quite good. And so long as it's on my beam or behind me, I shall get to Halifax today quite quickly. And after Halifax, if the weather like this continues, I should get through to St John's tomorrow. As ever, apprehension, but I think I've done everything right. I put an extra 50 litres into the flyer, and she looks lovely behind me. This is what it looks like out of my hangar door. Absolutely stunning, just blue sky everywhere. And if only I'd had that yesterday, I'd have been in Halifax and having a cup of tea. The tea here, incidentally, tastes like it's made of swimming pool water. There's so much chlorine.
Taking off again from Yarmouth, the weather is fine, but the Microlight isn't. It took a real battering during the journey up to Nova Scotia, and now some of the instruments aren't working.
As you can see, there's no flight at all, no data on the flight at. And though the ignition is on, I also don't have that working. That's supposed to indicate my fuel flow and how much fuel I've got.
And it's not just the instruments Brian is worried about. He's now being buffeted by strong winds. So all things considered, it's a nervous journey, but relatively short at 3 hours. And then he's safely down in Halifax, back on track, time to refuel. But he doesn't hang around long before taking off again. He has a timetable to maintain.
When I look back at all the different adventures of my life, I can remember minute to minute some moments that occurred. I remember being 3 hours in the Atlantic, crossing from Greenland through to Iceland, and being caught in a storm. And looking back on it, it was a moment when I was really most alive. You know you have to keep going, and if you don't keep going, then you die. And when you come out of it, you just feel you've really been through something sublime. And it was that I looked for and partially found in setting up this flight in the first place, and why I want to go into the Atlantic now. It's the 3rd of June. I'm in Sydney in Nova Scotia. I brought the flyer in here from Halifax last night, and she was slightly wounded in the sense that none of the data from the engine could be read. There's an instrument called a flydat, just wasn't working, and I traced some fuses. They've all broken. I don't know why they've broken, except they could possibly be to do with the shorting that I found that was causing such a noise in my intercom yesterday. Anyway, I managed to fix everything for somebody who's non-technical like me. That's I have to tell you that I'm going off across the sea, but my flydat has stopped working again, which means the fuse has blown once more, so something's seriously wrong with it.
And this means Brian can't see how much fuel he's using, which is potentially serious, as the flight he's making now will take him across a long stretch of ocean between Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. He expects to be in the air for 4 hours. Brian was hoping to reach St John's near the easternmost tip of Newfoundland, but with faulty instruments and cloud everywhere, that's going to be just impossible. Instead, he decides to touch down in a small remote town on Newfoundland's western side.
This very depressing looking scene behind me is Stephenville. It's in the northwest side of Newfoundland, and I just have to wait. So I've got a day here at Stephenville to find out what Stephenville is and what it does, and also tidy up the flyer. That's where I have to go, over those hills and into the outback of Newfoundland. There are mountains all the way around the coast. There's a coastal range, and I have to get past them and over some mountains inside there. And with this low cloud, I think I'd like to wait for about an hour. As you can see, it's raining on my face, and it's about 12 o'clock on Friday, June the 8th, and I'm 275 miles away from St John's. And I've been waiting all morning for the weather to break. I'm told it's clearing in St John's for the first time in 8 days. Aircraft are able to get in VFR, visual flight rules, which means they can actually see where they're going, and they don't have to rely on all their instruments to get in, and that means I can get in there.
That's what he thinks. What he doesn't yet know is another storm is brewing. Nothing to do with the weather, it's all about his monster fuel tank. It's causing such a serious ruckus that Brian could soon become a fugitive from the law.